Hi, everybody. It's Martha Creek. You can contact me, marthacreek.com. And these moments are offered. This is a podcast and a video series where I get to interview some of the coolest people on the planet that I'm blessed to be colleagues with, friends with, and in service with. And today I have Reverend Rich Carlini with me from out in California. So thank you, Rich, for taking the time and the space to do this.
Thanks for having me, Martha.
I
I'm
happen to
way
know
out here in California.
what you say.
I love the way you said he's out in California.
Out in California. That's out way out there on them there hills of California. That's coming from a hillbilly girl from Kentucky. And I know that you're serving as minister. I know you've been serving Unity Teachings and this movement for years. I know that you're a nurse, that you've been called in a profession of that. You have disclosed that you're also in recovery and that you hold that in high regard, sobriety. And these moments today and every other interview that I've put forth in these mentoring moments with Martha are offered to be uplift to you, whoever's listening. So whatever you're about in the world, we're encouraging you, I'm encouraging you just to be about whatever you're about, to continue to dial up your luminosity, to dial up your goals and your actions, sensible, sane actions towards you meeting your goals. And we dedicate and devote this time that we have together in dialogue in this process here for the betterment of all beings and for the progression of our own souls and for that of the whole soul of humanity. So know that listener, that whoever you are, watcher, listener, that you're supported and that there's someone here knowing the truth of you, who you are, what you are, how you're serving, and there's support all around. And if in any way this can be of support, it's blessed in that way. So I was thinking about before we got on the call, Rich, in reflection of, our lives take on a spiritual theme. So if you had to give 2020 a spiritual theme, what would it be? What do you think it represents?
Oh, growth. I think growth. I know I have grown spiritually just in my faith. It's just called on every last drop of sobriety and faith and unity teaching that I have to really walk through the last 10 months and to be willing to have the zeal to get up and get out of bed in the morning and say, here's what I'm going to do today.
Yeah, which is no little thing for any of us to have enough will or zeal or faith or uncommon stamina, uncommon motivation to say, I'm going to get up one more day and take one more step and do whatever I can, albeit small or large. I'm going to bring whatever I have to that. So how do you define faith, Rich? What does it mean to you as you refer to that and the value that is served this year?
Well, I'm a diehard unity guy. Faith is the promise of things hoped for. And so faith helps me bring the imagined from the imagined into reality. And so I guess when I say I have faith, when I get up in the morning, I'm there, oh, another day. And then I go, wait, this is the human experience. Let me move my faith into this. And what do I want to create today? Even though it might take an extra cup of coffee to move me along, I, I just, and it's also, it's a year to give thanks for practice because I don't, it's been the practice that I've been doing and the practice that I have that allows me to move into faith quicker and quicker, to put it behind. And so I'm thankful for that practice this year. I can see what previous years of practice have brought me. And also looking back at those years when I didn't have the right, a good practice, what that brought me as well.
Yeah, you mean consequentially?
Consequentially, yes.
Well, and let's talk about that because whoever, if you're listening here, you may think, what practice? What's he talking about? Is he in a law practice, a medical practice? It's like the practice of presence, the practice of faith, the practice of saying, wait a minute, I have a choice in this matter. Wait a minute, I've got to pause here. Wait a minute, I've got to wake up and go, oh God, another day. I've got to wait a minute. I've got to put another framework around that. So whatever you believe religiously or theologically, these practices are concrete, specific very purposeful practices that are effective, that have a lot of solid ground foundational things in place for us to navigate the winds of being human and the winds of change and conflict and loss and grief and worry and doubt and terror and addictions and other things, that says in the face of all this, that we're prone toward these patterned, old, more painful patterned ways of doing this that are quite consequential. And anybody that's taken a trip or two around the sobriety mulberry bush know that the consequences are grave, and the consequences are life threatening, and the consequences are of great loss. And that we then, those of us that have flavored that, say that they're too great for us. They're too great for me today. So let's speak a little bit about that. How do you define sobriety? What does that mean to you? And what is your practice around that? What would you say to somebody that may believe sobriety's out of reach or impossible even?
Well, after 28 years of sobriety, it's very in reach for me, but I know that there's just a split second can cause me to lose 28 years of sobriety of not having had a drink. And so, you know, for me, I have to think of, you said the consequences. And so it's not just about taking a drink to relieve any pain that I might be feeling, because I know it wouldn't be one drink. It would be another drink and another drink and another drink. And I know exactly what the drink would be. And so what I remember as my prescription is that I have to practice the principles, that I know that I'm an alcoholic, that I know that I can create my own reality. And I have much more difficulty believing that I can do that when I'm not sober. Because that gets in the way 100%. It wasn't really, Martha, until after I got sober, I actually found unity through sobriety, which a lot of people can say they do. A neighbor said to me, if you like recovery, you'll love unity. And she was right. And so I found unity and sobriety at the same time, and unity keeps me sober as well, practicing the principle, staying in the truth. And I guess faith also is staying in the truth. As long as I can see that, talking about these times, I believe that the COVID-19 virus has as much right to be here as I do. I believe that we created the COVID-19 virus and brought it into this reality with us, and it's going to be here until we stop bringing it into this reality. And it's here for an instant. So I have to stay in the truth of that. And when I get outside of the truth of that, fear pops in, doubt pops in, I can't, zeal goes away, will doesn't stay. But through truth and understanding that, yes, even though it may seem like me holding the high watch doesn't amount to much, it really does, because I'm not the only one that's holding it. You and I are both holding it.
Well, I think so. And I think anybody else that's praying, that's in practice, that has a devotion, that's willing to say, I've got to see this differently. I've got to get a different framework around this. I've got to interrupt these older, more instinctual, archaic, and painful patterns of regression, of fighting and flighting and freezing and giving up and throwing in the towel, or confronting and taking down and making wrong. That any one of us in any interaction that can do that has made a mighty contribution to a different world, a different way of being in the world, and a different way of being in our human experience. And that as I listen with you, Rich, and consider this too, that it would be nonsense to some, particularly coming from a scientist, a nurse, a professional, a medical professional, to hear things like I created or we created a virus. So I hear it in terms of the virus is purposeful. The virus is here to serve in some way. The virus is here. It is here. It has a right or not right to be here. It's here. And how we react with it and how we frame it up and how we accept what we can change and cannot change about it is going to determine how we experience it and how long this goes on. So speak a little bit about that for somebody that may not be familiar with the terms of that, or for somebody that may be coming at it from it's nonsense. That any notion that we have a part of creating something physical, the virus.
Well, you look at any virus that we've had, any pandemic, any epidemic, small polio, the most recent one, where we saw people in iron lungs getting breath, and we saw people knowing that we didn't know enough about contagions at that time to know what to do about it. But yet, we said we don't want this in our reality. And so people sought a vaccine for it. And Jonas Salk came up with a vaccine, thank you God, and it saved millions of lives. But we as a world were tired of putting up with it, and we created the energy that Jonas Salk used to create a vaccine to calm this virus down. I think the virus is still here, but it's not. I think we're all organisms, Martha, and Maslow said it early on, one of our basic needs is to reproduce. And that virus's basic need is to reproduce, and that's what it's doing. And we're reproducing. We're reproducing at a phenomenal rate. And until we stop as a organism, as a people, as a society, as a heart, as a part of this universe, and look at how many people we have on this planet and what's happening with all these people, well, we're going to have to take a look and see how we want to change the planet and how we want to allow humans to populate the earth. I hate to say that. That sounds so, I don't know what. It sounds insurrectionist almost. But I don't mean it that way. It's about facing our own reality. I look at Pope Francis, who is trying in the worst way, and he's doing it to face reality about certain things, about sexual orientation, about this disease, about what's happened in the past in that faith. He's trying to face it. And there's people over here going, no, 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 and people going, yes, 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 yes. And he's firm in his faith. He knows he's one with God, and that he and God are speaking together to create the universe. So I think if that man can stand firm in his faith through all of this.
Well, I think you've just described, honey, what it's going to take, what all leaders have demonstrated over time. Some ability with all of that. You better do this, you better do that, you better not do that. I agree, I don't agree, you're wrong. Follow me, I need, I want, we should, we shouldn't. And some other voice going, there's another way, there's another way. There's evolutionary process, there's an unfolding, there's the next greatest iteration of this. This is, I read that Richard Rohr said that we 2,000 years from now will be considered early Christians.
I agree with Richard 100%. I get into the whole Piscean Aquarian age discussion, and so I mean, in the 70s it was the dawning of the age of Aquarius, right? And indeed it was, but the Piscean age wasn't for 5 years, it was for a long period of time. And so we're seeing the very little bit drop of the Aquarian age in our human experience. And I think this is the beginnings of what all way showers, what all prophets, what all spiritual men like Jesus, like Muhammad, like all those who came before them, like Buddha, they know that through love, through peace, through touching one another with our hearts and realizing that we're one in this human experience is the truth. And so we're in the early stage of that, so early. We certainly saw it this past week, didn't we?
Yes, we have. And so speak a little bit about that then. What do you mean? What do you think the Aquarian age represents? Or what do you think, what energy it holds or what potential it holds for us as we um, consider it, align with it, choose it, create with it?
Well, I think it's an age of knowledge where we finally are all open to knowledge. I think we've, the Piscean age has been fought with wars in the name of God and conflict, and it's really, when you stop and think of it, it's always over God and over knowledge. And so I see it as a time when we're not afraid, when we let go of the fear of knowledge, because that's what we have, is this fear of knowledge, of knowing. I mean, how is it that as humans we sit here and look at the TV and the Hubble telescope showing us 225 billion years ago out in space, but we deny our own part in the evolution of the universe? I mean, we can't keep holding on to myths forever and ever. And the myths are beautiful, they've helped us. But we have conflict over myths because they're myths. And we don't really conflict over truth unless it's the people that are afraid of truth.
Yeah. And
So,
somebody that's still under some kind of spell of my truth and mistaking my truth for what's actual or factual, less mythical, non-mythical or less mythical. Yeah.
and the world of disinformation that we find ourselves in now is all a part of that holding on to the myth, to the, well, if I say it often enough, everybody will believe it. If enough people begin to say it, and that's true. And so we have to be careful about disinformation and how we. It's so funny because we all get the same divine ideas. It's that free will that allows us to choose how we're going to express it.
Yes.
And so I pray for right expression.
And informed, aware of consequential free will. And amen for that. I'd
I need more practice at that.
I'd love to hear today from you, Rich, with this devotion and understanding the value of sobriety and 12 steps, of how you would correlate that based on what unity teaches. And unity is, as your friend said, if you love sobriety and 12 steps as a tradition, I believe the 12 steps are a spiritual path. So they're for everybody, regardless of you don't drink or not, or drug, that there's some kind of addictive thinking, some kind of thinking that is consequential to you, some type of thinking and feeling that causes us to do things that this is out of integrity for us, that's harmful, hurtful, poisonous to us. So I believe that the 12-step traditions and the promises of 12-step provide a solid groundwork. So can you lay forth what your experience of that is, and how you would correlate it to what Unity's basic principles are?
Well, to just kind of sum it up, I'm going to talk about the 10th step, because the 10th step really has meaning to me, and it relates to unity. Because, if I go through the recovery process and I really work it well and I really do an inventory, if I go to the bottom and say, okay, I'm having difficulty, I'm powerless over this. And there's always that, well, don't say you're powerless over anything, but I have to say I'm powerless when I am, before I can not be powerless. And so I go through that and I do an inventory and I really look at what I say are my shortcomings. And then I begin to heal and make amends, but I'm only human. And so I'm still, even though I'm sober, I'm still an addict, and I still have that addictive behavior, but I'm more aware of it now. And the 10th step really helps me with that, because the 10th step says at night I can stop and take a look at the day and reflect on it, and I can clean it up tomorrow. And that's so lovely. And I make a point of cleaning it up tomorrow. I make a point of a telephone call, an apology without an expectation of any response at all, which is one of the hardest things to learn and practice to do. And I think if, we say that in unity, if we speak the truth, or if we get out of alignment, we realize we're in the human condition. And if we react in it, we still can go back and say, hey, this is, I apologize for this, or will you forgive me, or I forgive myself. Because a lot of times I have to forgive myself. The other person doesn't even know what I did. It's me that's beating myself up. So I think that bringing that type of awareness, that type of knowledge, that type of truth into where we are in the world, into the Aquarian age, and unity and sobriety goes so well at looking in that, because when we say that the presence and power of God is everywhere, and I am a part of that presence and power, that really is a lot of forgiveness. That's a lot of clarity. That's a lot of cleaning, that you can let go of so much that's blocking you, and then realize that, that divine spot in me, that Christ in me and that Christ in you were connected. And when we let each other connect in a more compassionate, empathetic way, the world is such a beautiful place.
Yeah. It's I've said it similarly, I believe, and I believe that sobriety includes a relentless, consistent, ruthless emptying out, a daily emptying, monthly emptying, weekly emptying, wherever you go, meetings, church, to walk in nature, nighttime, before I close my eyes, to review here, to see, where did I leave my integrity today? Where did I take on stress today? Where did I not show up as my highest self today? Then, without the shame of that, without the blame and the self-hate of that, without the recrimination of that, then it's like, then what would sane, sensible action be? To make an apology without expectation, to make an apology without attachment, to make a statement of regret, a sincere that, and for me, to always include myself, regardless of that, because I was quicker, even as a kid, to forgive someone else, but much more recriminating and hateful to and with myself than I ever have been another human being. So then my sobriety requires me to include me, to be as generous with myself as I am with another person. And then a consistent emptying out and a consistent refilling, a consistent connection. I have a source. There is something greater than me. There is something that's all powerful. There's something that's guiding me. There's something that can do for me what I can't do for me. Mm-hmm. And then a connection and alignment with that. And I heard that for years and was challenged for years to say that I'm powerless. And I even resisted it myself, and naively. And until I understand that speaking that I am powerless and awakening to just how powerless I am was my power. Mm-hmm. The power was in that admission. The power was in that understanding of that and what it meant, and my misconceptions about what power is and power isn't. So I hope if any of you are listening, if this is resonating with you at all, you can check out 12step.org. All the practices are there, the traditions are there, the promises are there, and it will take WORK. So only when you've suffered enough, give it a go. And if you've not suffered enough, live it up. Till it doesn't feel like living it up anymore, till the pain is greater. And to Unity, you can contact Reverend Rich is serving out in Davis. So I'll ask you if you want to put that on the recording. If you want to be contacted, Rich, that's up to you, or your ministry. If they want to check you out, what y'all are doing in the ministry there, you can put that on the recording here if you want to do that.
Would love to have you stop by Unity Center of Davis's service. It's unityofdavis.org, unityofdavis.org, and on the website you can get the Sunday service. All of our prior Sunday services are on there. And I'm Richard Carlini at gmail.com if you'd like to drop me a note. richardcarlini at gmail.com.
Yeah, so it's offered, it's a service, just like at marthacreek.com. There's a myriad of resources, videos, podcasts, these talks, interviews, Sunday services, classes, all that are provided there, free for anybody that will. And if you are not as resonant with it, but you believe somebody else could be or whatever, lift this up and send it on out there, because then together I can reach this many, then Rich and I can reach this many, and then Rich can reach this many, and then together we can reach a great deal of humanity through empowered teachings. And that is the vision and the mission of this particular Mentoring with Martha moments in this podcast. So together we can do what cannot be done alone. So as we close, Rich, I often ask the question, if this message, if what you and I are putting forth today is going to be listened to for 2,000 years, 2,000 years, this message is still going to be alive and meaningful, relevant in some way, and you wanted to convey one idea, one thought, one message to humanity, what would that message be?
That each and every one of us are as large a part of the universe as anything else that is a part of the universe. And we have as much to do with what happens in the universe at this present moment as anything else does. And the answer for that is all love.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
And
Thank you for
you.
having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, Rich. Thanks again. And for those of you listening, you matter. Your words matter. Your prayers matter. Your practices matter. Your ideas, your thoughts, your creative energy, your insights, and your sensibility. So how you take responsibility for creating your life experience and the world that you want to see holds great potential, infinite potential and power. And together, I bless you. I know Reverend Rich blesses you in it, and we uplift you in whatever you're about, to be about it and to know that you are loved and that you are loved. So be it. Till we meet again. Thanks again, Rich.
Thank you, Martha.
MarthaCreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.